Now, let me give you this. I want to show you something about the immigration police state. We've got a lot on the immigration police state. This reinforces the problems federalism and the U.S. Constitution encounter when faced with the central government's claimants over the immigration police power. Here's this. MCSO condemns recent transfer of person to ICE custody after backlash from council president. What's this? Check this out. Montgomery County Sheriff Maxwell C. Uy, that's U-Y if you're listening in audio, Uy, released a statement Saturday condemning the transfer of a person into the custody of federal immigration authorities on Thursday, June 18th, after receiving backlash from the Montgomery County Council. Council President Natalie Fani Gonzalez claimed that Uy failed to comply with the Maryland Community Trust Act. The act, passed in April by the Maryland General Assembly, prohibits local law enforcement from taking certain actions related to immigration enforcement, including transferring a person to Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody without a, yes, ding, 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 judicial warrant. Now, even if they had a judicial warrant, you couldn't transfer them to ICE anyway because ICE is unconstitutional. These are criminal acts. But again, since the United States has no problem with war crimes, it's part and parcel to the mindset. It's a very dark mindset. That is out of Montgomery County. But let me tell you this, it's not just Maryland. Here's this. Protesters claim this driver likely is an employee at Delaney Hall in New Jersey. And that's run by Geo Group, of course. Now, check out the headline. Terrifying moment, anti-ICE protester hit by car outside New Jersey detention facility caught on video. Now, notice, this is the outside. This is the inside. This is the driveway. This is the woman waving the upside down flag, the inverted flag, a sign of trouble. This is the Dodge Charger that hit her, I think. Or is that a Camaro? Could be one of the new Camaros. Yeah, I think it's a new Camaro. There's a man driving that. Even though his windows are tinted, it's not like Kit just ran her over. Here's the information that we have. A New Jersey woman was mowed down Sunday by a vehicle driven by a person during a Father's Day vigil for detainee families in Newark's Delaney Hall Immigration Detention Center. The violent incident unfolded Sunday during a vigil for detainee families being held at the high-profile ICE detention facility that was organized by volunteers with the Visibility Brigade. I don't think they mean that the ICE detention facility was organized by volunteers. I do believe they mean a vigil organized by volunteers with the Visibility Brigade at the high-profile ICE detention facility. Again, syntax is kind of important. According to the event leaders, nearly 100 people, about 75 vigil attendees and 15 to 20 additional demonstrators, were peacefully protesting, otherwise known as peacefully were protesting, holding signs that read, quote, "Free the dads, close the camps," outside the private-run facility when a red sports car rammed into one of the female protesters near the entrance gate. The victim's medical status is currently unclear, and you can't tell when you watch the video whether she was actually run over by the wheels over her legs because it's out of the right side of the frame. And they call it an escalation. The escalation, you mean the attempt to kill her? The assault with a deadly weapon? The escalation comes after weeks of ongoing protests at the northern New Jersey ICE detention facility, about 10 miles outside of New York City, during which numerous clashes have occurred between protesters and local politicians and the mayor and either federal officers or GEO Group employees who operate the DC ICE, the ICE facility in New Jersey. Now, let me show you a little bit of this because it's rather ridiculous. And I've got it right over here. Now, it goes over into Instagram, which is like what, part of Facebook? Here we go. Yeah. Do that again. It's a charger. Now, hopefully her legs were saved. I think her legs were saved. I think she fell away from it. Okay, so as I mentioned, that happened yesterday. Okay? So I looked around. I tried to get some information about this. And guess what? Of course, there isn't any information. I said, by the way, despite the fact that despite the fact that the car is on video entering the complex across coverage from NJ.com, New York Post, Pix11, and others, as of today at 3 o'clock when I was writing it, the Russians, there are zero reports of arrests, named suspects, vehicle owner identification, or accusations by police, ICE, DHS elected officials, or other government figures. It's astounding. I actually recorded this from MS Now.
And Rob Menendez. Congressman Menendez, I want to begin with your reaction to that video and what happened on Father's Day at Delaney Hall.
Yeah, it's just horrible to see. The lawlessness at Delaney Hall continues. As you mentioned, this was a group of individuals who were there, highlighting the fact that many of the detained individuals at Delaney Hall are fathers. They're inside on Father's Day. It was the same situation on Mother's Day when so many mothers were not home with their children, many of whom are U.S. citizen children, because of this administration and who they are choosing to detain, not just at Delaney Hall, but across the country.
I want to get your thoughts on a striking new report from the Marshall Project, because, there are these elements of the Trump administration's crackdown that are very visible, like what's happening at Delaney Hall and what's happening at Dilley in Texas. But then there are these other parts of the machinery in the background that I think very few Americans and voters are aware of. The Marshall Project has this new report out about the Trump administration using a little known and little used 1996 law in order to fine immigrants. And some of them are facing fines over $1 million. They're said to have deportation orders, but still be living in the U.S. But according to attorneys, some have open immigration cases, have permission to stay there. In one case, a woman is married to a U.S. citizen who's an active duty U.S. service member. She and her husband have 4 U.S. citizen children, and she's been applying for legal residency. And she has a massive judgment notice against her. It appears that the administration is now sending these private firms after immigrants to try to collect this money from them. And I just want to get a sense from you about what's happening here and whether it's above board.
Well, what you're seeing is a continuation of Stephen Miller and the Trump administration attempting to use every possible tool to inflict as much harm as they can on our immigrant neighbors. They will utilize any option that they have, including levying fees against individuals like the one you mentioned who are trying to go through a broken immigration system, but nonetheless go through it to the best of their abilities. And this administration is exploiting that broken immigration system to carry out this very extreme un-American immigration policy that's headed by Stephen Miller.
Okay, so I want to pause it there because, of course, typically you'll be hearing conservatives, maybe it's the Jeff Kooners out there or others, who will say these leftists, they just want the votes. We've known the way the game works for decades. Yeah, obviously, we've known for decades that Democrats typically have spoken a good game and not really done anything, or they've even seen Obama deport tons and tons of people. And then Biden comes in and starts allowing people in under the various programs, whether it be the asylum program or the DACA program, whatever it is for Dreamers. All these different things get so many of the conservatives upset because the conservatives will then argue, well, they're becoming welfare recipients or they're committing crimes and so on and so forth. Oh, they're driving trucks, as I mentioned already. And there was a piece over the weekend where they talked about, the migrants driving trucks. And again, all you got to do is look up the statistics and you'll find that the foreign drivers are 10 times safer than the native born drivers. It's just ridiculous. But regardless of it, people aren't looking into the systematic problems that arise when you have a government system running, whether it's the roads or the immigration policy or whatever it is. People are going to come up with various rationales to game the system in the way that they want, whether it's the Democrats for years and years thinking we'll bring more people in, and the Republicans made some pretty good points saying they think they're going to get votes with that. I think that was a good point. I think many of the Democrats were completely disingenuous when it came to that. But I also know that it's not my place to decide whether or not my neighbor can hire somebody or whether someone can travel someplace. And it's definitely not my place to decide that my neighbor's money has to be turned over to a policing system that I think should be policing all this stuff. Then I'm the aggressor. How does that at all work? How does a person say, I'm a peaceful person? So what I think is a really good idea is I'm going to use the agency of the state to force other people to pay for what I want to have done. How does that work? You can't get from point A to point B. One cannot continue to call himself a peaceful person if he wants to engage in statism to force some product out of a policy machine. It doesn't work. As soft as the product might be, whether they're handing out checkerboards to people, it doesn't matter. The initial aggression is wrong. And now everybody's arguing, well, what about this? What about that? How about federalism? How about the concept that Delaney Hall place shouldn't exist? There's no arguing that. It just should not. Nobody can make a rational constitutional argument that place has any constitutionally enumerated justification at all. It's not possible. Mark Levin can write as many books as he wants to and as many pages as he wants to misquote the Constitution or try to conflate naturalization with immigration, which he did in the opening of his book, Men in Black. He can do that as many times as he wants. It's not going to make him any righter, any more correct. He's still wrong. Period. It doesn't matter. You can get blue in the face and you can continue to say the United States government's got to do something about these migrants, and you're still wrong. You're wrong. You're just wrong. It's so stupid. And look where it leads. I don't know what happened to that woman. And then what about all the people who are having their money taken from them to engage and pay for the GEO group? And by the way, the government, they say, is starting to pull back on some of the money that they were using to buy up these warehouses. We'll talk about that tomorrow.